Thank you for joining us for this week's Leadership Podcast. Before we get into this week's episode, I want to let you know TKN Leadership Summit 2025 is right around the corner. Yes, that's right. We're back again. October 28th through 30th, we'll be back for our summit. This year's Leadership Summit is entitled Wiring, Making It All Come Together. We want to see you here in Calverton, Maryland, so that you and your team can expand your leadership potential and take your organization to the next level. Early bird registration is open right now. Go to our website, www.tknleadership.com, so that you can register for TKN Leadership Summit 2025. Now, let's get into this week's episode of the podcast. God bless you. Welcome back to Matthew Watley's TKN Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Darrell Williams. You all know the TKN Leadership Podcast exists to help leaders get to their next level. That's everything that we do at TKN, and that's what we do at the podcast. As the host of the podcast, my job is to make sure that we bring in some of the best pastors, thought leaders, and influencers around the world. And as the host, I get to ask the questions that you would want to ask so they can give us practical insights into how to elevate our leadership and take our leadership to the next level. This week, we have coming back a podcast alumnus, Bishop Charley Hames of the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. We are so excited to have him back. You all remember him from last season. He had come into being a bishop. He was elected, he was consecrated. Now he's been serving his district for almost 3 years. So we're going to talk about some of his new leadership insights and his new book. You all help me welcome Bishop Charley Hames. Bishop, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing well, and I'm so happy to be back on this couch with you. Looking forward to this conversation.
Man, we're excited to have you back. So it's been 3 years. It doesn't even feel like it's been that long.
Yeah, it feels like it's not been that long, and then some days it feels like it's been forever.
I bet it does.
Yeah.
I bet it does. Last time we talked about what it was like going from leading a congregation to being a leader of leaders. Right. So tell us a little bit, what have been some of the insights that you have gained through the practice of leading leaders over the last 3 years?
It's a plethora of insights. One thing that I would say off the bat, in this kind of position, it's a position that you really don't know how to do until you are actually in it. A lot of people have myths, fathoms of what presiding bishop will be or what a presiding bishop will do, especially in the Methodist context, where many people say we have the power of the purple pen. Where we can change lives. One of the things that I've noticed about leadership is that people often respond to you positionally and relationally, but not both at the same time.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and that's critical because when people respond to you positionally, that leadership is often short-lived, is dealt with fear and angst, and often is ladled in no trust.
Gotcha.
When it's relational, people want to pull back the relationships that you had prior to you being elected. They want to muddy the waters. They want to live in the gray. And oftentimes, familiarity breeds contempt. So when there's too much familiar territory, it often sets up the relationship for an explosive end.
Gotcha. And I bet you've had a whole bunch of things that you've had to manage through both from your position and relationally with people, and how some of those relationships have changed over the time of you being a bishop. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I heard an old adage from one of our deceased bishops, the late Bishop William H. Graves, when he was talking to his friend. I can't remember his friend's last name, but his first name was Arthur. They grew up in the church, got ordained in church, and he looked over at him and said, Bill, you know, it's going to be hard calling you bishop. And Bishop Gray said, you'll get used to it. Right? and while I was like, oh, that felt so cruddy and crude, right? The reality is that the moment that change happens, there's something unique happens to the individuals, and there becomes a separation of relationships in the context of the church.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Now, unlike most of us who kind of learn stuff and keep it to ourselves, you've learned so much that you are putting out a new book that's yet to come, going to be released in January. So for those of you watching or listening to the podcast, the book is either just being released or just about to be released, and you're getting a quick look into what it is. I'm going to recommend the book because I've seen the manuscript. There's amazing leadership lessons. But the book is called Leveraged Leadership, Unlocking the Power of Influence, Impact, and AI. Leveraged Leadership, Unlocking the power of influence, impact, and artificial intelligence. Tell us how you came to write this.
Well, it came out of, I had multiple presentations that was going on. I teach leadership development. I've been teaching it more than 20 years.
Sure.
I've advised CEOs, C-suite level individuals. I've ran a chamber. All of that stuff became the culmination of what this book is and this new, fresh definition of leadership.
Sure.
In addition to that, we're on a precipice of a new change, really a new world order outside of politics, and that's artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Many things have already came about. They are moving at nano speed in many respects, and I don't want the faith community, nonprofits, and other leaders to be left behind without having the knowledge or the foresight or the insight of what artificial intelligence is about.
Gotcha.
So this book is going to cover AI, is going to cover your own impact and legacy, and it's going to cover leverage leadership, which is your influence.
Gotcha. So you have 6 pillars for leverage leadership.
Yes.
You mind if we walk through the 6 of them?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
let's start with the first one. What's your first pillar?
So I'm just going to take my notes.
Take your notes.
It's forward thinking or progressive in thought.
Okay.
And that pillar literally deals with how you operate on a higher vibration. Most people want you to get down in the weeds or become reactionary in your leadership. Leaders who are progressive in thought or forward thinkers are always responsive in nature and not reactionary.
Tell everybody, hold on, before you go further, because people have heard this over and over again. Give folk responsive versus reaction.
All right, so this is a great example. I remember being in a situation where leaders was gathering and it was very hostile because of the numbers that was presented and what the stresses were of the day. And one of our leaders could not hold it together and just began to pop off and became super emotional and reactionary. And people were looking and watching to see if I was going to take what was being said as insults to me or attack on my character. But I knew who I was secure in who I was, and I knew what the principle of the matter was. So while that person went through their levels of emotional outbursts, I sat there and I waited. And I waited for that person to finish. And I said, now, let's deal with the facts, right? So I didn't respond or react, if you will, more react, not respond. I didn't react to none of the emotives that happened in that moment. I began to deal with the issues and the facts and not the persona of what was going on in the personality.
So instead of reacting to what's going on, you were able to take in the situation and articulate a real response, not just oh, you said I'm going to say.
Right.
Gotcha.
That this is we're not in a combat fight. This is about strategic moves and moving us back to the center of what our purpose and focus was in the first place.
Great. So that's the first pillar. That's the first pillar.
Yes.
What's the second pillar?
Second pillar, I will simply say is formidable discipline.
Okay.
And that's having an unequivocal will to push forward. Okay. Unbeknownst to me, most of my 4 churches that I pastored, I had to think back through them.
Sure.
And 35 or so years in ministry, every situation has caused me to have a formidable discipline, meaning that I had to have persistence. If I quit prematurely, I would have missed out on a lot of blessings.
Gotcha.
If I would have gave up and resigned prematurely, I would have never met you, for example. All of the things that kind of formulated my life and my destiny was hewn out of the ability to not give up.
How does one develop the discipline to not give up?
Right.
Because we've all been in places where we're like, you know what? Y'all can have it.
Right.
How do you develop the discipline? Because what most people don't say, because all of us tell the story of that time we wanted to give up. Most folk, if we're going to be completely transparent, it's not one time we wanted to give up.
Right.
It's 20 times we wanted to give up. It's 30 times over the course. How do you develop the discipline to keep going?
Well, part of it is experience. And then I say the second part is your uncanny ability to hold on to the promise of what shall be.
The promise of what shall be.
Right.
Dig a little deeper with that. Tell us a little more.
Versus what is.
Sure.
Oftentimes, we judge or move or act or react to what we're experiencing in the moment, not realizing that whatever's in the moment is temporary. But the promise becomes not only eternal, but it becomes the very goal by which we are getting there.
Gotcha.
You can use just as a simple, I was talking to some individuals downstairs, they was like, about running a mile versus 5 miles. Mm-hmm. The big difference is your formidable discipline.
Gotcha.
To know that if I run the 1 mile, yes, I'll burn a few calories, yes, I'll feel good, but if I run the 5 miles, the results that I receive after going through the process far outweigh the shorter distance.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So being able to see beyond what you're dealing with.
Absolutely.
So because for a lot of us, the reason we want to quit, it's frustration, it's pain, it's just fatigue sometimes.
Absolutely.
So being able to see beyond that moment
Right.
and discipline yourself to say, there's something after this.
Right.
There's a greater goal, there's a greater good. I like to put it this way. This is what I tell myself all the time. God didn't bring me this far to bring me this far.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. And just use that same running analogy. I just did a 5K not too long ago. And I got out there, I was like, oh my God, I don't have my earbuds. So I don't never run without music.
Sure.
So this is not the ideal situation. So I had to make a decision. Do I quit? Do I do not sign up? Or do I go ahead and register for the race? Because I know the outcome will far outweigh my unpleasant conditions.
Man, you just said something. Keeping going when the conditions are less than ideal.
Absolutely.
Because I think for a lot of leaders, we think that the way we know God is in it is because everything is just the way we want.
Right.
And both of us know, most leaders know, that's not the real world. Like it's rarely, I won't say never, it's rarely going to be ideal circumstances. There's always going to be something.
Right. And you have to, and this is just extra credit, you have to also condition yourself to not look for the shoe to drop all the time.
Gotcha.
You got to be comfortable whenever it drops. You're still going to be okay. Yeah.
Don't look for the shoe to drop all the time. Because plenty of folk, things are going good, but I know something's around the corner.
Exactly. And so you live less than your potential because you're afraid of what's going to happen versus living through whatever happens, you're still going to be fine.
And what if the shoe never drops?
Yeah.
What if the shoe drops and makes it better?
Right, absolutely.
But you've been living at half or 3/4 because of what could be. The specter of the problem, not the problem itself.
Absolutely.
So number 3.
Non-judgmental love, capacity to love everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, in our world, I think it's almost difficult, almost impossible to be an effective minister, servant, gospel leader without having the capacity to love everybody. And loving everybody does not mean that you like everybody. Loving everybody means even your haters, you love them too, right? Because scripture talks about that you can make your enemy your footstool. And it's not just stepping on necks to get to the next level, right?
Sure.
But it's understanding that once you conquer over whatever the issue is with that individual, it literally elevates your capacity to love, right? And loving everybody from a non-judgmental perspective gives you the opportunity to receive much more than you can with the lens by which you judge someone.
Do this. Talk to our leaders about loving people that don't see the world the same way you do. Because we live in contentious times.
Absolutely.
Where people, I'm not talking about cancel culture, where people just are like, I don't mess with them no more.
Right.
Because we disagreed about something. And sometimes, it can be the littlest things that we're just like, oh, they just don't see it the way I do, so I'm not going to do that. Right. And it makes our world much smaller.
Right.
Talk to everybody about how you can love people who you don't see eye to eye with on everything.
Well, it goes back to our old principle that you take the 1% and work 99% at it, right? I have a guy that I know I purchase clothes from who has a different political ideology and affiliation than I do, right? And I can see one day in his eyes when we were talking about it, he was like, uh-oh, am I about to lose a customer? And I said to him in that moment, I said, I hope we get to a place in the world where we can have difference of opinions and have varied of views and still know how to coalesce and work with each other.
Sure.
And his eyes lit up because he thought, because of the times we live in, that's impossible. I think that's the greatest gift that any leader can give, is to diabolically disagree with someone, but yet treat them with the humanity and dignity that they walked into the relationship with in the first place.
I think all too often we have deified our opinions.
Absolutely.
And that's why we can't get along with folk who see something different, because we feel like it's an attack on me. And of course, I'm perfect. So if you don't see things the way I see them,
right,
how can we possibly coexist?
And social media has been the piranha that has bit so many people and caused lives to be lost.
Sure. Because
of, if you did not agree with their comment or like their comment, then you became the enemy.
You became the enemy, yeah.
Right. And that's just, it's just bad. It's bad for development. It's bad for critical thinking. It's bad for so many uncharted reasons.
And as leaders, we can't really expect everybody to agree with us.
Absolutely not.
When everybody has to agree with you, that's a dictatorship. That's fascism. That's not leadership.
Right.
Leadership is bringing people who see the world differently
right.
together on the same mission and same course. Because just because we don't agree about everything doesn't mean that we've got to hate each other. One of my good friends from college, he's from Boston, which makes him a Red Sox fan, which means that he may go to heaven. It won't be a straight trip, but it'll be all right.
He might trip up there.
He might wind up there. As a Yankee fan, I can say that. And for years, we've known each other 30 years.
Right.
We go back and forth the entire year on social media, because we don't live in the same town anymore, about when the Red Sox play the Yankees, when the Giants play the Patriots. We just, when the Knicks play the Celtics, which has not worked out well for us recently. But we're still great friends.
Right.
And it's because these are things that we hold dear.
Right.
But we also see beyond that.
Right.
Because I think we lose fact of most people want the same things.
They do.
We may have different thoughts about how to get there.
Right.
We may have different ways we see it, but most people want the same thing. And as leaders, our job ultimately is to try to get people to the better place.
Right.
And if we can't do that with people we don't disagree with, there's never going to be a better place.
And you have to inspire people beyond their beliefs to believe in a greater vision for where they can go.
Absolutely.
Where they can go to. Yeah.
All right. Pillar number 4.
Okay. Pillar number 4, forward thinking is basically visionability.
Visionability. Okay.
The ability to go, take a lunch into your future and make it your present day reality.
Sure.
And you cannot be an effective leader without vision.
Yeah.
You can be a great tactician, you can be a great executionist, but to be a leader of leaders, you have to have vision. Okay.
I want to take a moment and break those 3 apart, because there are components of leadership,
right,
but everybody's not good at each one.
Absolutely.
So let's start with execution. What's a person that's great at execution?
I often describe an executor or a person that's great at execution as the number 2 seat, and it's not a lesser seat. It's the most critical seat of an organization, because that's the person who has the uncanny ability to take vision that you brought back to your present and build it as it was painted out to that person from the visionary.
Sure.
That's the person that keeps the visionary who lives in the clouds grounded.
Tethered to the ground.
Tethered to the ground and moving towards your purpose and your mission.
Gotcha.
Right. That's why that person is critical.
Gotcha. Right. Now the tactician.
The tactician is the person who takes direction from the executor. Right. That's the person that says, I don't need to know the strategy. I just need to know how this is done and how to do it well. And that person has attention to detail. That person has the ability to motivate teams to perform better. That person has the ability to see all of the intricacies and how they come together in a way that is painted by the executor.
And now that visionary leader.
The visionary leader holds the keys to the whole painting. They can see all of the colors. They can see the lines, the shapes, the modalities. And then if they are worth their salt, they can continue to tell that same story with such detail that the executor can execute, but also the tactician can hear it from the visionary and be inspired to work out what the executor gives them.
Now, I think we should make sure that everybody gets all three of those are leadership positions.
Absolutely, they are.
They're not lesser. They're all leaders, but we're all gifted differently.
Right. And there are links to the same chain.
Yes.
And you cannot have a chain when you have weak links.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Because we all know visionaries who surround themselves with other visionaries, and all they do is sit in a room and dream.
Right, right.
We know executors who are like, listen, we're going to get this right, but what are we getting right?
Right.
I don't know, but we're going to get it right.
Right, exactly.
And we know the tacticians like, we're going to make it better. What are we making better? Don't know, don't care. We're just all making it better.
Right.
You need all of them because that's how you get, let's just call it what it is, a leadership team.
Absolutely.
Because a leader without a team is just, a guy or a girl.
Right. And I touch on that in the book, but I'm not going to give all that
No,
detail.
y'all got to buy the book to get all of it.
Yeah,
This is just overview. You got to buy the book.
Absolutely.
All right, number 5.
Number 5, let's talk about number 5. Influential intelligence, the uncanny ability to see how you can change a situation.
Sure.
Right. And I remember one of my former mentors would say to me, he says, I don't know how it happens, but whatever room you're in, whoever's the influencer in that room is going to be drawn to you. Mm-hmm. And at first I took it as a negative, but then I began to learn, okay, that's a gift that he's identified.
Sure.
So how can you take your influence, right, and the intelligence of your influence and change it to modify, maximize, or optimize a situation? Mm-hmm. Let me give you an example. I mentioned to you that I was chair of Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce. Yeah. So I had a little bit of everybody, major business owners, small business owners, construction company owners, etc. But we had a goal to support some of our political leadership. Mm-hmm. In the process of that, I had to pull all of these individuals together who otherwise would not work with each other for the common goal to elect a certain person.
Gotcha.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's using your influence, intelligence. Mm-hmm. They trust you. They see you. They understand that you can speak their language. And then you're moving all of these individuals to a certain goal and purpose.
And the thing is, you're influencing a wide swath of people. Like any chamber of commerce. You're talking about race, ethnicity, social status, for that matter, motivations. Like, I've been a part of chambers of commerce. You got the hardcore capitalist. You also got the nonprofit guy who's there saying, "Hey, listen, I'll make y'all money, but we trying to save the world. How do we get all of these people together?" Right,
and have them move to the place where they see the commonality.
Gotcha.
And that's often hard.
Oh, brother, we've all seen it. I mean, that's why it's hard for us to come together.
Right.
Number 6.
Passionate power.
Passionate power.
Short answer, creating legacy.
Okay.
So most of the times people want to become leaders or build themselves up or make their lives better for themselves and their families. Mm-hmm. But a passionate power, a person who understands that principle under leveraged leadership, understand it's beyond them, it's beyond their family, and how they create a legacy to make the world more equitable, make the world more salvageable, and make the world more productive. For example, quick story, I shared a little bit in the book. One of my previous pastors, Dr. W.N. Owens. I was a kid, grew up on the south side of Chicago, public housing. One of the things that he did, he always made sure that I was taken care of beyond my capacity to preach.
Okay.
So I had one of my first jobs that I had after school. I always had other jobs, but I worked as an admin assistant at the church. Okay. Making $85 an hour.
Sure.
You know, he was the same guy who taught me how to tithe. I went to work one week. My check was like, I can't remember what it was. It was like $76 and some change. I'm like, oh, wait, what's going on? Why my check short? He says, let me look at it. He said, oh, your check is not short. I said, well, yes, it is. He says, no. He says, you was not tithing, so I tithe for you, because you can't work for God and don't give God back his 10th. Right, so after then I said, hey, bro, you ain't got to worry. I'll give you the 10% myself, right? and it taught me a simple principle of tithing.
Sure.
When I getting ready to go to prom, couldn't afford prom, he rented a brand new silver Lincoln Town car. Man. I was styling. It had a phone back in the day. I know smartphones, but back in the day, the phone was attached to the car. That big joint
attached to the car, yeah.
You know, you pull out, you on the phone, chilling with your prom date, right?
Sure.
What I saw in him was that he constantly, invested in me, bought my tuxedo or rented it for me. So I said, when I get old enough and I get resources, I'm going to do for others what he did for me.
Gotcha.
That's creating legacy, and that's passion and power.
Gotcha. Now, we got all the pillars, we got all 6 of them, but you end the title with the power of AI.
Yes.
Tell us how AI fits into this, because we may want it to go away, but you can either learn how to use AI or you can get washed over with it.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about how AI fits into the new leader.
So chapters 13, 14, and 15 deals strictly with AI. I define what AI is. I define what MI, what machine intelligence is, and I begin to tell the difference. But AI has been around all along. Alexa, that's AI. Siri is AI,
Absolutely.
Right? Your maps that you use in your car is artificial intelligence, right? It's been around us a long time. In fact, it's been around since 1960s. It's been active, right? What we've seen in the last few years is a ramp up of how it began to integrate into our lives. And I want to tell people right away that this is not going to take your job, right? For example, artificial intelligence cannot teach you empathy,
right?
Because AI at best is a language. It's a language and a tool that you use to help you become more productive and more efficient at what you already do.
Gotcha.
Right? So in those chapters, I begin to break what that efficiency, productivity looks like. I break it down, and I begin to give the tools so that we embrace it. So when this wave happens, because it's happening right before our eyes, we're not left behind, holding the bag, trying to figure out how to break into a world that has somewhat left us with questions and not answers.
Well, man, I am excited about the book. I'm excited about getting my copy. Like I said, everybody, the great thing about having great friends is you get to know the stuff beforehand, but I want to see the finished product. Brother, Absolutely. I'm so proud of you, so excited for this.
Thank you.
I want to encourage our audience to get copies of your book.
Yes.
Right now, give the audience the leadership tip you want to leave them with right now at this present time.
All right, this is something fresh off the dome.
Sure.
You are the mountain that needs to move out of the way.
You are the mountain that needs to move out the way.
Absolutely.
Thank you, my brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
This has been Bishop Charley Hames. His new book is coming out, and I am telling you all, you've got to get the book, get the book, get the book. It is Leverage Leadership, Unlocking the Power of Influence, Impact, and AI. I promise you, if you get this book, it will help you level up your leadership. You know, here at the TKN Leadership Podcast, our goal is to help you lead at your next level. And part of leading at your next level is you've got to keep pouring into yourself, you've got to keep reading, you've got to keep learning, and you've got to keep listening to the TKN Leadership Podcast. Love you. We'll see you next time.